Hello, everybody. My name is Len Bayer, and this is episode 70, and it's the final episode of Targeted Justice v. Garland. We're going to do a countdown for 2024 into 2025. And to help me with this task, we have my dear friend and Attorney General for Targeted Justice, Anna Toledo. Anna?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Len, for doing this. And it's an honor to do this. I think we are closing a cycle and then beginning a new one, and it's bright and it's beautiful, and I just look forward to it.
So am I. All right, let's start our countdown. 10 most important things that influence targeted community and gives us hope in the next year. At number 10, we have an announcement from Havana Syndrome Organization, and we want to congratulate our colleagues who achieved this important proclamation in the city of Ventura, California. October is considered Havana Syndrome Awareness Month in this Californian township. In their press release, Havana Syndrome Organization writes, the Awareness Month was established to raise awareness about directed energy injuries reported by victims around the world, but also to appeal to legislators to amend the Havana Act and include all American civilians, not just federal employees who are experiencing Havana syndrome injuries.
Well, this is huge. I just wish everybody got the awareness that Havana syndrome is a silent epidemic happening in all of the United States and also around the world, but at least here in the United States. And I am absolutely certain that for one federal employee that has Havana syndrome, there's probably over 1,000 civilians that have it. I don't know if you share my same position, but I think that that's exactly what's going on. It's just a silent epidemic that Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to have to deal with because people are undiagnosed. People don't know. They are confusing. I'm forgetting things. Maybe I'm getting Alzheimer's. No, it's the neurostrikes, right?
Correct. I share your sentiment that the number of undiagnosed civilian patients is probably at least in the thousands, but likely in tenth of thousands. At number 9, we have something that happened in April of this year. Colorado governor signed into law Protect Privacy of Biological Data Act that now includes neural data. So uh, everybody calls it the Neural Rights Bill because Neural Rights Foundation has been instrumental in promoting this bill, and they're working on enacting legislation in other states. But there are deficiencies, there are obvious holes in this bill because what it achieves the appearance of protecting consumer rights, but not targeted individuals. You cannot sue companies or federal agencies for leaking your neural data. All you can do as a consumer in the state of Colorado is to file a complaint with the state attorney general. And all he can do or she can do is to fine companies.
Well, number one, the huge problem with it, I mean, it's a step in the right direction, and that indicates that they obviously recognize there's a problem with the invasion of neural rights. But number one, it's not opposable against the government, so you cannot sue the real culprits, the real criminals. And like you say, it's up to the attorney general. We know that in Colorado, it's Shriver and CIA. They run the state. So, on the one hand, you have a state legislature that is trying to, do something in the right direction. But then they have these controlling, very powerful entities like Shrivers that are carrying out crimes against humanity in the middle of Colorado Springs. So I don't know, and this statute clearly cannot be opposed to them, even though they are doing carrying out remote monitoring and all the things that are in violation of neural rights. So, it's just an indication that there is something wrong, but they don't want to, I guess, expose it as they should.
Correct. This is why it's number 9. It's not a number 2 and number 1. So the importance of enacting this bill is limited. At number 8, something that happened in May, a House Subcommittee on Terrorism, Law Enforcement, and Intelligence held a hearing entitled Silent Weapons, examining foreign anomalous health incidents targeting Americans in the homeland and abroad. The homeland aspect of it, of course, was very important. There were 3 witnesses. We gonna only mention 2. There was a retired Lieutenant Colonel Greg Edgreen, who described pretty much targeting to the T. He spoke about the reality of neural weapons. He mentioned that CIA uses neural weapons, that they can be lethal. And he also mentioned the fraudulent NIH study, which we will touch upon later, regarding investigation into the brain injuries related to the AHIs. He also mentioned that 30 to 40% of AHIs, anomalous health incidents or neurostrikes, are domestic. Another witness was attorney Mark Zait. He's a DC-based attorney who represents federal employees, and he emphasized that there is evidence that the CIA meddles in the investigation into AHI, specifically in the FBI investigation of domestic AHI attacks, and the agency doesn't share information and ignores validated cases. And he called it a government cover-up. I would like to play a couple of clips that stood out, and I think they're really important for us to review again. We had a whole episode about it, but let's just revisit. So, for example, the part that stood out to me, it's a quote by Colonel Edgreen. He said that these weapons are designed to make the target feel like they're crazy, especially on the low intensity, long duration hits. It's very relevant to what we target individuals are experiencing. Let's listen from him directly.
There's no entry or exit wound. How they're designed is to make the target feel like they're crazy, like they're imagining things, especially on the low duration, the low intensity, long duration hits.
Very important. And the second quote I chose was by both Edgreen and Zaid, and they were asked directly about the civilian victims. Let's listen.
Are any of you aware of any reported incidents from individuals who are not members of the United States government, domestically, I should say?
I am not, but I will throw a caveat in there. Generally, I only focused on former and current government employees that were attacked.
Mr. Zaid, are you?
There are many people who believe they are victims of AHIs. All you have to do is look at my Twitter feed whenever I post on the topic. I only represent federal government employees and their families, so I don't focus on the accuracy of those particular claims.
I sometimes have to bite my tongue, but number one, Ed Green, as he's explained, he only helps former military victims. And up until this May 8th hearing, at least I didn't know about him. I don't know if you did, but obviously, and I have memorized that quote of him of these weapons do not leave an entry or exit wound and make the victim feel as though they're going crazy. And that is something that needs, we just need to put it out there like a mantra, because most, as you know, 75% of targeted individuals don't even know they're targeted. And because, like he said, it's so slight and long duration, and they don't even know they're being targeted. As to Mr. Said, I think it's, nobody can make up Nobody can make up. He says people believe that they are victims. You and I know you cannot make this up. It's not about beliefs. It's people assert they are victims. And I think he does a disservice to the entire nation by saying people believe, because it's not, you don't just believe this, you know it. You know it because you feel it, because you have the symptoms, and because you know what you used to be before you were attacked and what these attacks have done on you. So that's my comment on that. And I think that they have to pressure. You see, here's what's weird. After May 8th, we haven't heard any more from this committee. Have you?
Well, we had a report from a subcommittee on CIA, and we'll be talking about it.
But they haven't. But they haven't exposed. They haven't looked into. They haven't knocked on targeted justice door, saying, do you have? I mean, you are the largest organization that purports to represent targeted individuals that allege have Havana syndrome. You have a civilian registry, and they haven't bothered to knock on our door and ask, is this what Mr. Said mentioned, that there's people in the Twitter line, is this real? I mean, anybody that really wants to do a fact-finding process, the first place they would knock on the door is targeted justice.
You're correct. That's exactly my point, that the representative asked the witnesses about civilian victims, but he has witnesses who only deal with federal employees and ex-military. In order to find out something about civilian victims, you need to talk to the organization that tracks civilian victims, and that's us. Targeted Justice is the only organization that formally tracks medically diagnosed cases of Havana syndrome. And so the representative, he will be one of the recipients of our first Havana syndrome civilian registry report, which I'm in the process of writing right now. So there's hope. At least somebody asked this question. So we will try to satisfy him with our answer.
Okay. Yeah. And see, the bottom line of that meeting was CIA's obstructing the investigation. Well, why would that be if it's not for the fact that they are the culprits and they're trying to protect themselves? I mean, it's just obvious. If it was Russia, it would be an act of war attacking the United States and the people, civilians here, and federal employees. And the United States would have already retaliated. But because the CIA knows it's not Russia or China, that's why they're obstructing the investigation, because they don't want to admit. It's like what I tell people, that they listen to their V2K and they repeat what the V2K says. It says, don't you understand? They're not going to tell on themselves of the crimes they are committing. They're not going to say, yeah, it's me. You can find me here in Colorado Springs. No, they're not going to admit to it. And that is exactly what Mr. Said is denouncing. CIA is obstructing the investigation. Why would that be? It's like all the arrows are pointing at the CIA, particularly because they have the heinous MK Ultra history. So it's not like they can just pretend they're just this innocent little sweet little lamb.
Yeah, you're reading my mind, Anna. We're continuing our countdown, and at number 7 is the report by the chairman of the House Subcommittee on CIA, Rick Crawford, who is a Republican from Arkansas. He issued an interim report on Havana syndrome just this month. And to add to this, there's another report that we will just mention. It should be here at the same number, issued by the Senate Intelligence Committee. But their conclusions are so frighteningly similar. So Rick Crawford tells us in his report that the intelligence community assessment issued in March 2023, and this is the last time we heard officially from the intelligence community about AHI and Havana syndrome. Though that report lacked analytical integrity, it was highly irregular, hindering the subcommittee's trust in the intelligence community process and its conclusions. The intelligence community respond, specifically the CIA, has likely impeded collection of the information He also points a finger at the Biden administration, that the Biden administration hindered in the investigation. That must be an eye opening for many and a wake up call. And he specifically points out that Congress oversight and investigation must continue with support from the Trump administration.
Well, Targeted Justice and Richard Lighthouse and you have done a lot of the homework that this representative needs and is asking for. All he has to do, I urge every TI to print out the little diagram that is in Targeted Justice homepage and send it directly to him and say, here's the answer to your questions, Mr. Crawford, because it's all the diagram, the org chart is there. That's number one. Number two is this: these people, it's the right hand is not seeing what the left hand is doing. The Senate, as you can recall, in December 20th of 2023, issued the mislabeled as a threat report. That was in 2023. But if they put those two together, what they get is what they're looking for. They are mislabeling as threat people, and they are attacking them with directed energy weapons. And it's 2 + 2 = 4. It's so easy. And all they have to do is go to Targeted Justice homepage and see the org charts there. So I just urge everybody, send them a Christmas card or a Happy New Year card with a copy of that org chart. It says here's the answer to what you're looking for. Look in the right places and ye shall find.
I agree with you, Anna. I also want to point out that it's 2020, end of 2024. The first report about Havana syndrome was in 2016. Obviously, we know that there were other electronic pulse attacks and microwave attacks prior to that, but that marks the official beginning of the Havana syndrome phenomenon. So 9 years, and the intelligence community has not produced anything. They only rejected certain hypotheses, including the scientific consensus that exists. And you're asking again the CIA to investigate and produce results. They haven't done it in 9 years. I think it's time for unconventional hypotheses and unconventional explanations.
I want to know, why don't they ask DOD, why are you not shielding our nation? If it's true, the story, the fairy tale of it's Russia and China, how come they don't naively ask DOD, why are you not protecting the homeland from these microwave attacks? It's pretty straightforward. Let them answer the question.
I agree. Moving to number 6. And this is where I had to produce this diagram to really explain this event. So in August of this year, we learned that CIA interfered with the scientific research, the research that the NIH was conducting into Havana syndrome. So now we have CIA meddling with the attribution investigation and with the scientific attribution. NIH specifically said that CIA coerced patients into participation in the study. This affected the outcome of the study that was published in March of 2024. And as a result, we don't have an ongoing research program anymore. NIH shut down future research due to this unethical coercion. This is what this coercion did to the data. So the original study that studied neuroimaging in the affected group, which was 40 patients, and the control group, and they received statistically significant difference. The new NIH study published in March of 2024 also had control group and the affected group, but the affected group grew from 40 to 81. And who these people are? They're people sent to the investigators by CIA. So they knew which people to send and to dilute this data, to dilute this difference. So statistically significant difference was not achieved in the study, but there was a statistically significant difference within the affected group. So the CIA coerced patients to participate in the 2024 NIH study published in 2024, which skewed the result and shut down the investigation. Who would be interested in that? There's a CIA hand in it. It couldn't have been more clear. And yet we're still looking for answers.
Yeah, they probably put it in there 41 people that have no Havana syndrome, and they lie and they say that they feel they have it, or they have symptoms, just to, like you say, dilute. Now, let me ask you this. Isn't this the study that they retracted because they realized everybody attacked them and said it was bogus?
Right. It was not officially retracted. They said that there's an IRB, Institutional Review Board investigation, and that the future research will be shut down. But the study itself is still out there. It hasn't been retracted, even though everybody across the board, from the people who did the National Academy of Sciences to James Giordano to Mark Zaid, everybody, including myself, we all criticized because it was so obvious what happened.
It's totally skewed. Yeah. Look, it's in plain sight. The criminals are trying to cover up their crimes. And it's time for Congress and the senators to look into what they have to look into, which is, why are you working so hard to cover up? Oh, maybe it's because you're the one responsible for all this tragedy, right?
Right. We're moving to number 5. This is something that happened this December. A lot of things happened at the end of the year. So there was a new lawsuit filed by Mark Zaid and another firm who also represented AHI victims before, Crowley Law Firm. So they filed a lawsuit on behalf of American Foreign Service Association, would be something similar to targeted justice, caring for civilians. So this is for the people in the intelligence community, and 3 plaintiffs against the Department of State for the wrongful denial of benefits under Havana Act. The part that I wanted to bring up, and the part that really means something to targeted community, is that there's a part of the lawsuit where plaintiff Jane Doe 1 describes her experience about the debilitating attack that has been happening domestically. She lives in Arizona. Here's a direct quote. She continues to suffer recurrent incidents of pain that last anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour. The pain is so severe that she likens it to the pain of giving birth.
Well, I wrote about this in my Substack because this is the first time that we see that Mr. Said is wetting his toes on the ocean of the targeting, because you see, you get attacked and you would never, your atrocious highness head attacks and neural strikes, you would never compare them to giving birth. Well, yeah, because you've never given birth, but also nobody would compare an attack to the head as giving birth. So what this indicates to me is that this is the best, the cleanest way he could explain this woman is a victim of sexual aggressions by the criminals that are perpetrating these rapes, because these are directed energy weapon rapes. And the reason why I put those two together is because one of our plaintiffs in TJB Garland explained to me that it felt as though, her, I'm not going to go into the whatever, but it's comparable to giving birth. And so what I believe is that, and I even tweeted it to Mr. Shade. I said, okay, now it's time for you to say how many of them started hearing voices after the age of 40, because it's about time that people like him bring out in the open these crimes and these torture that is being perpetrated. You cannot be shy about this anymore. And this is a step in the right direction that he's putting it out there. Of course, she just wants coverage under the Havana Act. She's not suing anybody for damages per se. But until until we shut down the weapons, the attacks are going to continue. So I don't, I don't see how he can escape the need to expose what these crimes are for what they are, because he has a lot of CIA former CIA clients. He has to know what is going on.
I think he does. I think when he was answered that question at the May House Committee on Homeland Security, I think he was simply tiptoeing. He wanted to say yes, but he doesn't want to change the focus of investigation from federal employees to the uh, to the civilians. And I think we should be absolutely past that. We shouldn't have a silo of government employees and their families and a silo of civilian. It's happening in on US soil. So we have to investigate and look at them together. And unless we do it, we will never figure out the attribution both in terms of who's doing it and what's doing it, the scientific and intelligence attribution. And so that is my hope for the 2025, that we will stop that artificial division and start working together.
Well, one thing that we can never lose sight of is this. Citizens, and particularly attorneys, we have an obligation of denouncing crimes. When we know that crimes are being carried out, we have an obligation to denounce them. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Anna. We're up to number 4. In July, Government Accountability Office issued a report on Havana Syndrome, which contained facts about the government's AHI registry. Specifically, the DoD is responsible for this registry. And we learned a lot about it. So for example, we learned that as of January of 2024, so a year ago, there were 334 people who qualified for medical care due to anomalous health incidents. We received a breakdown whose employees are being affected. So 16% from Department of State, 11% FBI, 34% intelligence community, meaning CIA, and Department of Defense, 29%. This is based on the portion of this patient. And as you can see, the highest percentage is between the DoD and CIA. We also learned that there are 15 children who received medical assistance due to AHI, and that's really sad. And that really travels into the civilian category. We are ringing a bell, we are putting up flags, children are being affected. This is an urgent public health crisis.
Absolutely. Children are not federal employees. So when you look at, I mean, this is the biggest red flag that Congress should be looking into. There is absolutely no reason. And also, as I recall, Mr. State also talked about the pets of his clients being attacked. I don't know if it was where was it? I think it was in the May 8th hearing. I'm not certain about that, but certainly this is it's already, the cat is out of the bag. This is not Russia and China. This is retaliation against these federal employees. But the crimes against humanity are happening here in the United States and are being perpetrated by DoD employees that now have license to kill with that new directive that went into effect on September 27th. And every single targeted individual reports that their attacks have gone up so much, and that it's borderline, do they want to kill me? Because now, guess what? DoD gave permission to the Space Force traitors to kill us. And that is a reality. It's contained in that DoD directive that says that they can use lethal force in conjunction with their collaboration with law enforcement agencies. And since we all know we have been illegally placed on a terrorist screening database on 2 secret categories of the terrorist screening database reserved for those that do not meet the reasonable suspicion criteria of being a terrorist, well, they can totally justify what they're doing to us, the torture, the pain, and the increased attacks that feel like we're going to die.
Correct. And we also know that the Space Force Delta 3 department has EWOs, electromagnetic weapon operators. So we know that electromagnetic weapons are being operated by Space Force, and it's a part of the military, and the military now can use these weapons against civilians. It actually became legal in September of this year.
Let me tell you, it's not legal. Just the fact that the executive issues an order doesn't make it legal. It just gives them permission. But in my opinion, it is an illegal granting of power to the armed forces to perpetrate attacks against people here, civilians here in the United States, that the FBI tells them they're terrorists. You know what? That is a violation of the Convention on Torture, aside from the Eighth Amendment. So these people have not even been accused, tried, or convicted of any crimes. Even if they were, it is illegal to torture them with electromagnetic weapons. So anyway, it is the DOD directive in and of itself is illegal, and we just hope that Mr. Heckwith does away with it when he's at DOD.
Thank you, Anna. That's an important distinction. The permission is inherently illegal.
Absolutely.
Okay. We are up to number 3. In August of this year in Colorado, at the event called Targeted Action 2024, we announced civilian registry for patients diagnosed with Havana syndrome. This was an answer to that government accountability report and the DoD's AHI registry, which doesn't account for civilians unless they're dependents of federal employees. So we not only opened the registry, we also provided diagnostic guidance. To the best of our knowledge, there are about 30 diagnosed cases among civilians, including children. And I have to remind everybody that only diagnosed cases are accepted into the registry. So when you just send your name, please enter me to the registry, it's not the process. We're not going to accept just your name. It has to be a diagnosed case. And this is where my role comes in. So what's going to happen to this data? It would be presented anonymously. Your name wouldn't be there. No sensitive information about you would be distributed. It will be presented to the CDC, which is the agency that needs to track these cases, analyze, and provide measures. And I think this is the best effort to legitimize civilian cases and ignite real change in the targeted community. That representative who was asking a question, what about civilians? This would be a report that I'm writing right now that will be issued in January, answers that question directly. And I will open my cards right now. There are only 7 validated cases in this registry. All the other cases, people who have been diagnosed with Havana syndrome, I'm talking to you right now. You need to realize that not only you're working against your own interest, you are working and jeopardizing the entire targeted community and our goals. And I'm gonna stop beating around the bush. Shame on you. See, nobody makes argument that we shouldn't have a civilian registry. This is a step in the right direction. This is the right step to organize the data. But they don't want to give it to me. Well, because I'm personally responsible for their data, I sign a form where I personally guarantee privacy of their sensitive information. Well, if not me, please tell me who will maintain and do the legwork and organize the data and write reports and send it to the CDC, send it to Congress people. Who? That's my argument. So You know who you are. Shame on you.
Absolutely. Well, the criminals have been, as you very well know, they have been injecting venom into our community to make people not trust the genuine and sacrifice that we are doing, all of us at Targeted Justice, to not just expose this, but to seek retribution and to seek healthcare, for example, that you want civilians included in the Havana Act. Well, if you do not put the evidence in front of Congress, how is Congress going to act? And if you don't provide Dr. Lambert the evidence, who he has uh, an obligation to maintain your information confidential to the extent that he only for what he needs to prove and establish. If you don't do that, then what good does it do for you to sit in your house and complain about your Havana syndrome if you are not being proactive? I just don't get it. And I just think it's part of the mind control that the criminals do on people so that they don't do something to improve their situation. It's just, to me, it's absolutely, and yeah, shame on people that are not collaborating with it. I don't have a diagnosis because I haven't been able to, but the moment I do have it, I will absolutely, I not only want to give you the information, I want my name to be there because I want to document how much harm has been done to my brain by these criminals that have absolutely, it's not just the physical harm, but it's the invasion of your thinking. Those that have V2K, the torture of V2K, because V2K causes Havana syndrome in as much as it's done with microwave weapons, So I have to echo you. I hope everybody gets their information correct, those that are diagnosed, and talk to you about it and get to you the information, because it will empower the effort to get the crimes against humanity and against targeted individuals recognized by Congress. It's scientific evidence that cannot be denied of the attacks being perpetrated on you. It's not. They can't deny it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I really appreciate your support. And I want to say thank you to everybody who submitted their information and support this initiative. How important is this initiative? It is number 3 in our countdown. Number 2, Anna, this is what you've been doing for 2 years. In January of 2023, you filed this historic lawsuit in the Victoria District of Texas called Targeted Justice v. Garland. And I would like you to go through the points and deliver everything that you want to say about this historic lawsuit. And I'm confident we made a history. It was not in vain, and the future of targeted individuals will benefit from this history.
Thank you, Len. Well, absolutely. First of all, we filed it, like you said, in Victoria. And Judge Tipton, when I asked for an extension of 5 pages to submit the preliminary injunction petition, he made a very important statement. He said, "We find the petition to be meritorious and thus grant the 5 additional pages." It was at that moment that, out of nowhere, without anybody asking for it or without grounds for it, the case was transferred to Houston, and we all know what happened thereafter. Our discovery was denied for 4 months regarding the status, the TSDB status of the 18 plaintiffs, even though in prior cases like El Haiti versus Cable and Kovac versus Ray, the attorneys were allowed in Haiti, attorneys were allowed to see the TSDB. In Kovac v. Ray, it was examined in chambers. So the court stepped away from what it had been done in prior cases, and from there on, there's a lot of events that happened that history will judge because this is a historic document. That complaint was detailed, the program, and it's a historic document that will forever demonstrate how this very courageous group of 18 plaintiffs tried to shut down the most heinous unacknowledged special access program that followed MK Ultra and COINTELPRO, destroying and obliterating the lives of so many, not just the lives, but the physical integrity of so many. And I am confident that it's not over until the fat lady sings. I think that many good things are coming, even though the Supreme Court did not hear our plea to reverse what we believe are the erroneous decisions, both of the district court and the Court of Appeals. I believe that it's not over yet. It's the best is yet to come. It is what I believe.
This was a tremendous effort, and we thank you, Anna, for your effort. I don't know anybody who would be able to do all this groundwork, the legal research, and to make all these arguments so concisely that we basically, when we went to a Supreme Court, we put that issue front and center. This is not about fantastical claims. This is about illegal and unconstitutional placement of Americans into secret categories of the Terrorist Screening Center database operated by the FBI, period. And that question has never been answered because the case has never been heard on the merit. That is a lesson in history.
Yeah, well, it's my hope that President Trump will amend Homeland Security Presidential Directive 6 to specify you need probable cause, number one. And number two, or Congress. Let's demand from Congress. That's, we're going to engage now in we have the different vice presidents to engage in different campaigns. And one of them is reaching out to Congress and telling them you need to make this, because here's what's weird. In 20 years, Congress has refused to make into a statute the terrorist screening database. They have not touched it with a 10-foot pole. Yet there have been over, I think, 40 cases fighting over the TSDB. Now, thanks to FBI versus FICRE, which is now pending in the District Court of Oregon after the Supreme Court said, no, it's not moot the case. Now, Congress really has to look into the fact that people are being placed on that list that has never stopped an act of terrorism pursuant to the sworn testimony in El Haiti versus Cable. They admitted that the list has never stopped an act of terrorism. Well, it's time for Congress to clear up the air and just say, no, if there's going to be a list, you can only have people there that meet the probable cause standard for filing charges against them. That's all you can put in there. And take out from the list all the J6ers, all the parents that went to protest at the school board meetings, all the Catholics that went to Latin Mass, and all of us, the rest of targeted individuals, whistleblowers, for whatever reason we were put in there. They have to be out of the list, including Tulsi Gabbard, who was placed on, I guess, handling code 2 because she was stamped with the 4 S's in her boarding pass.
Anna, you must be a mind reader because we are now up to number 1. The number 1 is the most important event that happened this year that has the potential of affecting our future and our fate. It's the election of Donald J. Trump and the nominations that followed his election. We know Pam Bondi has been nominated for Attorney General. It's a very important position. Kash Patel for Director of FBI, and Tulsi Gabbard that you have mentioned has been nominated for the Director of ODNI, Office of Director of National Intelligence. So why these are important? Because Attorney General in his position as the number one lawyer in the country, allowed illegal placement of Americans into secret categories in the of the TSDB, and violated due process, and violated the executive order that created this database in 2003, thanks to President Bush. Kash Patel, why is it important? Because the FBI operates this the database, and it distributes information, including this listing in the NCIC. When we say, every time I meet an officer and I have an opportunity to speak to a police officer, I say, "Hello, officer, let me save you some time. I'm in the handling code 3." And that raises eyebrows, and they just don't know what to say. And why Tulsi Gabbard's position is important, because it's basically it oversees CIA, supposedly. And the CIA, everybody has been pointing fingers at the CIA in every report and interview. And CIA maintains this narrative that electromagnetic weapons are not real, or it doesn't operate them, or we don't have them, or this is just fantastical. No. And finally, Doge has the opportunity to blow cover on the black budget and all the money spent surveilling America. For example, via fusion centers. How do they spend? What do they do at the fusion centers? What they pay money to the informants for? That all needs to be investigated.
I have to comment. Attorney General Merrick Garland not only allowed, and his predecessors, he not only allowed the placement of Americans in those secret categories in the violation of their civil rights, but more than that, the Department of Injustice, because right now, until the new administration gets in, it's the Department of Injustice. I have to say, they fought tooth and nail our petition for redress of grievances and our claim for our human and civil rights. I'm going to repeat here, the attorney for the Department of Justice, Madeline McMahon, said to me, "Oh, this case is going to get dismissed anyways." She said that to me over the phone. So they knew something I didn't. And without so much of as a hearing, the case got dismissed. They did everything. They lied to the court. The motions I diagnosed, I listed all the lies that the Department of Justice said to the court. For example, that we had made up the term non-investigative subject. When you do a Google search, over 6,000 results come out. And they wrote under Rule 9, is the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 11 says you cannot sign a document stating a false fact to the court. And they told the court that we made that up. That is just one of the many lies that the Department of Justice told just to get away with dismissing our case. So I am very hopeful that Ms. Bondi is going to, first of all, take out of the Department of Justice all the people that colluded to deny targeted individuals their day in court by misrepresenting the truth to the court, because it's all documented. I have it, with audit reports. I put the documents there, and they really obliterated the due process rights by misstating the truth. That's number one. And obviously we're all hopeful because Mr. Patel's expressions have been that he's not going to tolerate the weaponization as it has been used. The FBI has been used to chase away dissidents and punish dissidents and just not do what it's supposed to be doing. So we're very hopeful on that. And most important, Dodge, this is where we want the community. We're going to be writing newsletters and giving addresses. The community needs to write to this agency. And sometimes snail mail is better because we know that our electronic communications are illegally interfered with, because there are grants. For example, we denounced how the Department of Homeland Security gives away money to private organizations like the University of Dayton to be reporting on, for their counterterrorism efforts. And they just give money away to a lot of private organizations. That was a $400,000 grant. So that came out in a report that we talked about in a prior podcast here. So we have to ask Doge to look into the money that is spent given away in grants to private organizations to chase civilians and to spy on them illegally, like the Citizen Corps. InfraGard should be obliterated. Citizen Corps should be obliterated because what they do is chase, stalk, harass, spy, and vandalize people's property. So we have a lot of homework to do, and I just want to emphasize, Len. I'm going to have something to say at the end, but I want to emphasize that the power is in the numbers. Don't just sit there. We need you to take your pen and your paper and put this envelope and the stamp and send the correspondence.
That's a wonderful overview, Anna, and you left us on the optimistic note that the change is coming, and we're very hopeful about these nominations and the change that is coming through the United States government. And with that, Happy New Year. I want everybody to remind about the mission of Targeted Justice. We want to end the illegal unacknowledged special access program, known as the targeting program, and stop the use of electromagnetic weapons against civilians. I know, Anna, I know you have a few things to say, and before I let you share your final thoughts, I want to mention a couple of people that we lost this year. First is Robert Duncan. He was a personal friend, and I haven't been able to share any information about his death until I had a permission from the family. And so now that I do, I would like to tell you that what transpired on July 9th is really atrocious. I invited Robert to speak at the Targeted Action 2024 in Colorado. And in the early morning of July 9th, he responded that he will come to the event and he will speak at the event. And the same day, he passed away. They found him in a few days, but the time of death coincides with July 9th, the same day that he shared with me this wonderful news. I was looking forward to seeing him again, giving him a hug, and listening to his presentation. Everybody loves Robert. Robert is, I think he's still with us because his books are with us, his thoughts are with us. The autopsy that was conducted didn't yield any specific results. And I'm going to say something that I have never opened up about per family's request. What Robert told me privately, and now it's going to be public information, that he was diagnosed with a blood disorder that occurs due to radiation exposure, ionizing radiation. And I relate this information to his sister, and his sister requested to include the radiation exposure measurements into his autopsy. And despite that, it was not conducted. And she was very disappointed, and so am I. But basically, they swept his cause of death under the rug, and the family just was tired to fight it. It was like speaking to the wall. And so we lost Robert. And just yesterday, I found out that we also lost Robert McCrate. And he was not a part of target community, but he was a professor who was advising NATO on emerging technologies, and he knew about event syndrome. He is the one who coined the term neurostrike, which means it's a neurocognitive disruptor that damages, permanently disables a human brain. A much better term than anomalous health incidents. So I learned that he passed away. He told me that he was having a rare cancer, and he was dead within a couple of months. I think that we lost him to deep state that didn't want his information to reach the public, to reach the Congress people. He complained that his first New York Strike article that he wrote in 2020, he wasn't able to publish it. It was declined, although he had a very high academic status. It wasn't published until 2022. So he was one of the outspoken people who was not close to target community, but he was helping us. So two losses this year, Robert Duncan and Robert McCreight. Now to you, Anna.
Well, I dare say two murders. And we have to only wonder, what's it going to take for, I guess you can remember that Tucker Carlson said that Congress continued the intelligence community to do what they were doing because they were so scared of them. It's time for them to, stomp their foot and end the overwhelming control that the intelligence community has over Congress and many other governmental offices, and just put a stop to this. What is it going to take? How much more blood has to be spilled before they do anything? I am outraged because I mean I knew about Dr. Duncan, and it's just outrageous because, see, it all points to the CIA. They didn't want him speaking the truth. That's why they had to murder him. And you know what? That speaks volumes because all the arrows point to the CIA. Anyway, so what I wanted to mention is that we're going to engage in a digital warrior campaign. We want to raise awareness among everybody in government, and we're going to make a post about it in the Targeted Justice newsletter. Please look out for it, and please follow us in all social media. We're going to put it there. We know that a lot of targeted individuals, you cannot donate to our cause because many of us, that's part of what they were planning on, making everybody broke so that we would not have a base that could help us accomplish the goals we're fighting for. But it doesn't matter because it doesn't cost you anything to follow us on social media, and it will help us monetize and obtain the funds to continue our fight, because everything we do is it costs a lot, and we're trying now to do translations into other languages. And even though it's not perfect because it's done with AI, still it gets the message out. We just need people to have the information about what's happening to them. So if you can help us in following and sharing our content, it's going to be empowering in order to continue doing more of it. And that's what I'm going to be appealing to you through the newsletter and every time I can. Thank you so much. And I really, really hope that you can harvest the strength to withstand these increased attacks that we're all undergoing, because I think the future is really bright for all of us. And I just hope you can muster that strength and have a happy new year.
Happy New Year. It's been a wonderful journey. This podcast has changed the life of so many. It changed me. It changed you. It taught us a wonderful lesson that speaking honestly to the community and putting an effort gets recognized and gets result. And I want everybody to learn that lesson, that you need to do something. We give you actionable items, and you need to take this as a challenge and do something every day. When you wake up and you go to bed, you must ask yourself, what have I done today and what can I do tomorrow? This is the last episode of Targeted Justice, and the last and final episode of Targeted Justice v. Garland, and we will reemerge into 2025 as the Targeted Justice Podcast. It's time for rebirth. It's time for countdowns, and at times for new horizons. Thank you.